Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all. You are once again welcome here on the platform of the Vigils of Conscience on the front page of international news. Europeans are in a big dilemma. Europeans are hot because US President Donald Trump is using a malice. He wants to deliver Europe like in a hen on a golden platter. To Russia, he wants Russia to eat raw. The Europeans, yes. But the gentleman wants to ensure that since the Europeans do not want to understand anything, he wants to fight against Russia. He wants to ensure that there is a direct confrontation between Europe and Russia. And this starts from the idea that Emmanuel Macron has never ceased to defend. Has been spreading everywhere the idea that we need to set up a coalition of volunteers, we need to go on the ground in Ukraine, we need to help Ukraine, etc., etc. Donald Trump wants to push Europe to send. He asks Europe to send troops to Ukraine. Yes, you can already imagine the consequences. So, in the context of this video conference, ladies and gentlemen, it is this news that we will talk about. It is this news that we will dissect. But before we go on, yesterday was joy. So for more than a year now, I have been working with Moyen Express and I was notified of my appointment and therefore I prefer to share it with you. And then we had some political activities, which is why you didn't see me all day yesterday. So then, before we continue, I ask you to share the video conference as much as possible. Put a lot of likes, but on the other side, when we give the information, do you like it? Do you share yourself? Leave enough comments when it comes to a personal situation concerning me. You call on it, it doesn't interest you. In any case, most I noticed, especially on Facebook, very well rated. Let's go into the depths. Donald Trump. He is asking Europe to send troops to Ukraine, but he is not going to send troops to Ukraine. That's out of the question. So Donald Trump is putting pressure. He is pushing European countries to send troops to Ukraine, and he knows that he is influencing the Europeans. So its objective is to reduce the direct involvement of the United States of America and transfer the security burden to Europe. The security burden of Ukraine he wants. Transferring this burden to Europe. Since he's coming to power, he has not stopped saying that this is a problem that is happening on European soil. America is far removed from this conflict. This is also the reason why in recent times he has proceeded to his temporary withdrawal. Yes, he temporarily withdrew so that Europe and others could manage. Donald Trump is very smart. You know, the debate now revolves around security guarantees for Ukraine since the advent of a peace agreement, at least in the turmoil, is very close to peace coming. But the most worrying part is after the signing of the peace agreement, as it guarantees the security of Ukraine for no more than Ukraine. Relieve the same thing, and this is why Emmanuel Macron proposed sending soldiers on the ground to protect Ukraine. But it was this idea that America had rejected. Donald Trump refused and continues to refuse. But the worst thing is that this idea, when the poll was carried out, many Europeans were opposed to this idea. They don't even agree at all, while some European leaders want to, such as Macron, such as the new German Chancellor, such as the British Prime Minister, while they want, many Europeans are against. So it must be said that Donald Trump's strategy has the consequence of putting the Europeans in a delicate situation, supporting Kiev or risking a direct confrontation with Moscow. That is to say, either you support Kiev where you risk being in direct confrontation with Russia, therefore. Trump also gets into the idea of those Europeans who presented Russia as a monster if Russia does not support Kiev so that Kiev is strong. But Russia, after devouring Ukraine, is going to start with the Baltic countries. Poland will be on the list. Then other countries, Germany and others, will be attacked. You know anyway. That is why in European defense circles, they are preparing for a possible war, a possible conflict between 2029 and 2030. We had to talk about this regularly. So the projects of Macron and his allies, this is what Donald Trump is based on. You know, Macron, as we said earlier, insists on the idea of a European security force beyond the Ukrainian question. He says that a European security force must be set up. Europe must be ready to deal with Russia, and the goal of Macron's projects is to show that Europe can defend itself without depending solely on the Americans. This is Macron's intention. But on a financial level, Europe does not have the means, first of all, to defend itself, since until then it is the American military umbrella that continues to protect all of Europe. That's why when President Donald Trump announces the withdrawal, as he considers withdrawing his US troops from European soil, his panic is already proof that these people have no strength. They have nothing compared to America. They only depend on America, and it is this situation that Emmanuel Macron wants to reverse. But unfortunately, they do not have the means for their politics. So many European leaders see it. This action of not wanting to no longer depend on America, as a means of strengthening their credibility against Moscow. Europe must be credible vis-à-vis Moscow. Yes, we are talking about the whole of Europe facing a single country, a single state, Russia. So the idea in question is divided. Some countries consider it an unnecessary provocation to Russia to set up a European security force. It would be needlessly provoke Russia, that's one, and above all, the project is not based on popular consent. Many disagree. This is a decision of the elites, not a decision of the people. And even Vladimir Putin did not fail to mention this. He said it was the European elite who were against Russia, not the populations. And that is why, moreover, the populations, there is a survey that took place, the European populations. They fear a direct confrontation with Russia. Polls show a clear rejection of sending troops to Ukraine. European citizens fear an uncontrollable military escalation, because if this unleashes between Russia and European countries, no one will be able to stop it in any case. And it will be difficult to control, since they are seeing what happens in Ukraine when Russia starts and doesn't stop. And Russia's allies will get in on the dance. So European citizens fear a military escalation. A real risk, huh? There is a real risk of a direct confrontation with Russia. Yet they have always fought to avoid this, and that is why families, young people, workers understand that they would be the first victims of such an adventure. So the Europeans are completely opposite. The people say clearly, and Ukraine, yes. But going straight to war, no. This is what the people of Europe are saying. We will see how far Donald Trump can push the pawns of his strategy to deliver Europe to Russia. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this was the front page of international news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I'll be right back with some news. It was the voice of your only samurai.